Hi there. Welcome back to the Evolving Leadership and Workplace Culture Virtual Summit. I'm happy to have Neal Bauer with me this hour to share some expertise on CSR. And Neal, for anyone who does not know who you are, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I am the founder and co-host of original Double Plus Good Games podcast, which turned into Double Plus, which is a charitable amplifier that helps connect brands to charitable events and charitable groups and attach those to influencer and new media markets. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. So let's talk in general first about CSR, and just in case anybody doesn't know what that means, why don't you define that for us and give us some examples of that?
Sure. So it's CSR stands for Corporate Social Responsibility. There's a couple different. They used to call them wellness initiatives or employee-based programs, but they started off as human resource initiatives, but now CSR are more in line with a corporation's mission. Like, what are they here for? What are they really doing? So it's almost like a conscience for an organization. So if you don't have a CSR program or group or initiative, that these days says a lot more about your corporation than some bad publicity.
Yeah, and I think is it true that younger folks tend to care more about working for a company that really has values, right? But like, they're not just words, right? Like, they like to see that the company that they're working for actually shows some kind of purpose and are giving back in meaningful ways. And is it just young people, or is it everybody?
You know what? That's absolutely. I was going to hit on that. The Millennial Market, but it's youth. It's essentially anybody under 30. Reaching out to them, you need to be honest, you need to be sincere, and you need to, they want to be working with products, goods, and services that actually have their futures in mind. That's across the board. When we're dealing with influencers on streamers, content creators on YouTube, Mixer, Twitch, whatever, those platforms, they want to work with brands that are in line with their set of beliefs. And we're also seeing it through spread up. I hate to use these terminologies, but like Gen Xers, millennials, whatever, but it's target demographic of 30s to 50 market is skewed a little bit more interest in what are we doing? We've got to be focused on the environment. We've got to be focused on our personal wellness. They're across the board. I haven't done a lot of work with the baby boomer generation,
right?
But I know that there are some people in that group. I would probably say that's the smaller group. But when you're working with charities and working with these nonprofits, these foundations, they want to start growing into these younger markets because they're the philanthropists of tomorrow. These are the people who are creating technology, these companies that are growing into these spaces. So they have a vested interest in getting in touch with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is great. I mean, that's why Double Plus is well positioned to tie those two needs together. So before we get into the details of what you're doing and how you do it, what are some other? I mean, I've seen good examples recently of companies giving back. Either donating money to find vaccines or creating, building the protective equipment, personal protective equipment. Is that what they call it? Yeah, the PPE, right? We're all learning all these new things, right? That we had no idea what they were before. So what are some other examples of ways in the past where a company would connect with, with a purpose and give back?
Yeah, so corporate social responsibility isn't new. It's been around a lot of cited examples are like when Tylenol had a product that made somebody, I don't know if they got sick or died in the 80s, they removed all of the product. They were like, it's gone, removed it from stores. That was a huge social responsibility move. It cost them tons. And when I believe is it Walgreens or CVS, one of those chains, I think they both don't sell cigarettes anymore. That was $2 billion in revenue that they lost because, listen, if we're practicing healthcare, wellness, we're becoming that destination. We need to be willing to forego that. So those are programs that most people might be familiar with and that have been around for a while. The modern day corporate responsibility programs, some of them deal with employee wellness, but like offering free, I think Amazon might also do this, offer free gym memberships for some employees. But really with COVID-19 and what's happening now, employee programs to make sure that they're paid, like they're taken care of, right? Like you mentioned, Bauer Hockey started making face guards, not the masks. I think, there's a couple companies making those now, but the companies that step in and really kind of start solving problems, they're the ones that are doing a lot of the corporate social responsibility you hear about. But there are so many, it's a spectrum. There's so many different ways to get involved.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you think is a good format for a charity or CSR integration?
So that's the most important thing. So let's just say you have a company that is wanting to get in a new space or wanting to talk to a new demographic. It has to make sense. You cannot shoehorn in a company that has done a tremendous amount of, I'm not going to mention any, but there are companies out there that have done a lot of damage to the environment, right? I could not get them involved with Greenpeace or some initiative without a lot of pushback and without damaging both brands. One of the brands is like, hey, let's just say we're mixing fossil fuels and Greenpeace. Like both sides would be upset and there would be, your negative press is what you'd be serving. So it's attaching the right brand to the right charitable good or the right community good. And that's what we do. Like that's our au jus is what I say. Like what we swim in all day is attaching those brand initiatives to groups that make the most sense and it open up doors to conversations that when we talked about millennials, again, I'm rambling here, but this is to a point. When you want to approach an audience, you want to do it with sincerity and integrity. So you can't approach Twitch and go sponsor a charitable event and be like the Tostitos Twitch show, and because they're going to be very sensitive to that. It's going to be a big turnoff. But if you sponsor it and you connect these streamers or these content creators, these influencers with programs that they have that can help amplify both the streamer and show what actual good these corporations do, that's where magic happens.
Well, I think the authenticity is where it's at, right? I think you've given some great examples of how it's not going to work either if people are just going to smell the inauthenticity, right, based on what you do, or there's just a mismatch in making that connection. So so get into some details then about the programs that you run. Like exactly how does that work? How are you making, like, what is it you're delivering?
Okay, so we started off as a podcast, and so we come about this is I've worked in the video game industry since the mid-90s. I know I look 18, 21, but I've been working since the 90s in the games industry. First off as, in the trenches, developing games, then strangely through retail in building game stores, and then into the media side. Well, started a podcast to kind of help put all this together. And what happened in that podcast is I wound up starting getting connected to charities within the gaming space. That would be Child's Play charity that has been around since 2001, I believe. They've generated, I think, $65 million for charity.
Wow.
Extra Life, which is Children's Miracle Network's gaming charity. Game Changer. There's a bunch of different gaming charities. Well, we started driving awareness to them, building up that, and this is all organic. So background in games, moving into the charitable space, but then we had a game developer who wanted to donate their game to charity. Like, how can I get this game into more people's hands? Definitely kids in hospitals. He had some experience with being in the hospitals and seeing the kids
Right.
being there for an extended period of time. He
Right.
wanted to get his game out there. And so I'm actually wearing the shirt today, which is very crazy.
Awesome.
It wasn't planned, I swear. I've been wearing the shirt for 3 days.
Right, yeah.
This is COVID-19.
That's awesome.
So we had to, they donated this game to charity, and the charity's like, we don't know what to do. So we came in and we helped attach it to Amazon's Indie Amplifier, where it was amplifying games made by independent developers. We got that put into that program. Amazon actually brought the game some attention, brought the developers some attention, and the charity wound up was the benefactor of enhanced donations. Now that game that was just developed for PC is now on Xbox. Microsoft is now championing it. So that one good was brought through multiple channels, and it's still delivering. Like, it's going to be, heck, on Tuesday, I don't know when this happens, but in May, that game will be front and center on the May is giving. It's a giving month for
Giving Tuesday.
Tuesday. Thank you so much. Oh, you're so good.
Yeah.
I'm so proud. I didn't want to get into the weeds, but Giving Tuesday starts. That'll be front and center on the Xbox. But that's the thing. We are taking seemingly disparate parts. How do you get a game developer together with a game charity supported by corporate initiatives? And that was just one example. But that was kind of when the rubber hit the road for us. And we've been doing that for the last 3 years. That is effectively what Double Plus has been about.
And so so I know you were doing some work with events as part of like those activations. And I know, right now events are kind of in crisis, like, events may or may not look different in the future, but just for the sake of, telling us a little bit about how that worked and what element did that play in the process?
Yeah, so events were huge for us, physical on-site events. Back in the 90s, there was one game show. It's called Electronic Entertainment Expo E3, right? Then you had CES. That's been around forever as well. But nowadays, you have the Penny Arcade Expo 4 times, 5 times if you count Unplugged. You've got Gamescom. You've got TwitchCon. You've got, there's no end. Even South by Southwest features games sometimes. So there's so many events. What we try to do, and this has been to our benefit, actually, what's happened now, strangely enough, we would set up events online, on Twitch, on Mixer, on YouTube, and even on Facebook. Events that, they could be gaming tournaments, they could be just donation drives, but they would have set goals, or they would be set over a period of time that would culminate in a big event, like at E3. Like if we had an event that we had an event called Quarters Up for Charity, where every game that was played, you could track it. You could track what games were played during the event. All you had to do is tie a key together. And every game, all you had to do is play a game on your phone or on your computer or on your console. And a sponsor gave a quarter for every game played during this event. You didn't have to do anything aside from play games. So we had a lot of people playing games. And the winner of that, the person who had the highest score at the end of it, we sent to Penny Arcade Expo in Boston. That was last year. But that's how we put together those events. But now, with that out of the equation, the physical events out of the equation, what we're doing now, and this is where we've been exploding since March 1st, effectively.
Right, it feels like 3 years, but yes. Right.
Yes. Today's been 2 months.
I know, right, yeah.
We've had people in different industries, professional sports, people in the movie industry, there are different groups that are saying, how can we continue to stay activated? How can we get involved? And so now we're tying in these celebrities or these professional baseball players, football players, hockey players in with streamers on their streams. So they're on Twitch. It's all digital. It's all remote. But they're getting together for a common good. And we've got something coming up on Giving Tuesday. We've got the following week, we have another event lined up. We used to do these, per show. Like, hey, we would do a show in January, show in February. We're now doing these like every few days. And my favorite joke, which is so terrible, people are sick of it already. And you might have already heard this too. I have people calling me regularly saying, what can I do to get involved with this in the CSR space on Twitch and how you're doing? And I'm like, returning my calls in 2019 would have been a good start. Because the people that jumped onto the corporate social responsibility, realized that this is what we need to do. Not because there's a COVID-19 virus, but we need to do this. We need to get into the space. Those are the ones who are reaping the rewards. Yeah. The others, again, sponsors now, we can attach them to events, but not as integrated as, they can't be as tied together, because getting somebody like, again, I don't know, I don't work with them, but just say getting somebody like Frito-Lay up on what's new in Fortnite is a bit of a challenge. It doesn't happen overnight.
That's all. I'm already starting to see a theme between our speakers on this, summit. It's like, hey, if you already had a good culture, right, or you were already thinking about doing good before, then great, because you're way ahead of the game, right? But if you were not, or did not, have those things in place, then definitely you've got we'll just say steeper learning curve at this point, right?
It's that time cost quality triangle that they talk about, but it's like morality, timing, and all of that. It's a different type of triangle. But yes, if you already had, and that's what's really great, strangely, I've done a lot of digging in on larger corporations, but we've actually worked with a couple studios, which is crazy, movie studios in Hollywood. I guess they've got more of a finger on the pulse, but we started working with them in the spring of last year. And we had a couple movies that we were tying into outside gaming events. And we had a few this year that are terrible. We had movies releasing that we are tying these streaming events to that were postponed, but they were really on board with it. And I think when this comes around, people are able to go out, though they will be able to capitalize on being there. Even if they're jumping into it now where we weren't able to take advantage because we can't get people to theaters now. I think afterwards they'll be a little bit more up to speed.
So we're talking a lot about celebrities and large companies. So I don't want people to think that you have to be a large company to take advantage of these kinds of things. So give us kind of a range of types of companies or size of companies that can do these kinds of activations.
Yeah, and what's great is I keep mentioning larger companies, larger organizations, because when we're talking about when people say I want to do an esports tournament or I want to do a online event, and can I do it yesterday?
Right.
The cost of it goes through the roof. So that's why we're looking at when larger companies come in. However, what's really great is there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of charities in your neighborhood or in your backyard. There's a government site. I'll put it up on our site so it's on our site, but I don't know. I'll put it on the front page after this.
Yeah.
But you can find charities in your area. So you don't have to get attached to massive charities. You can get attached to something local, which will be way more beneficial, way more advantageous for you. Because those can tie into a much larger event down the line, but you're getting connected with your community locally. You're showing real engagement with what's happening in your area, and that will grow your community locally and then expand it outwards. So yes, smaller organizations, perfect. What's really interesting is that we've been working with a lot of the smaller charities. We will have an event. Again, I keep using streaming events, but there's different ways to do it. I'll just use it for simplicity. If we have an event going on Twitch that is a big event, say we have a Rocket League tournament that's going on, which is huge. Trust me, it's a big game. It's come back.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we can have somebody provide underwriting or put together that event, but then we can attach smaller charities that are beneficiaries of it. So, perfect example, we had an event that involved a military charity, and they've never been in the gaming space. Well, we were able to reach out to a few gaming charities in the game space. So, Stack Up's one of them, Operation Dropship, Operation, yeah. Oh my gosh, I haven't had enough coffee, but anyways,
right.
They are integral in the games space. So what we're doing is bringing them in to be beneficiaries. These are smaller charities that, like, some are helping PTSD soldiers, some are helping get food, and we are able to attach them to these bigger events that have been already underwritten. And so all they have to do is get their audience engaged, and they can generate, or they can take advantage of the donation pool. So that's how charities can do it. Companies and organizations that have, as I said, want to get involved with corporate social responsibility, they can go out and join groups that are simply planting trees in your area. There are charities and groups that do that. We have walking trails. There are signs everywhere that people need help. So kind of reaching out at that level is a very, very easy way to kind of start. And then, you're like, you know what? I don't like washing my clothes 3 times a day. Maybe this isn't for me. There is another charity, maybe walking dogs or taking care of the elderly. There's so much out there to take advantage of. Companies will come to us and say, I want to do something good. And we'll say, okay, here's what you need to do to do something good. We'll put together a program, plan, activation, whatever. Then they'll be like, well, what's my ROI on this? Like, that's a good question to ask. What do you want? Do you want to do corporate good? Or do you want metrics? Because we can do both. But you can't do social good with the expectation that ROI or eyeballs or whatever is going to come from it. The feeling, what you're trying to do there is drive awareness that wellness is extremely important. And I do believe it is CVS now that I think about it. Because now that I'm thinking about it, I've started to remember.
Right, you're like,
you're generating awareness. Like, you're generating a feeling of good. Like, all right, this is something that they did. I know that this happened. I don't go there because, again, I'm 18, 22, whatever age I am.
Right.
Right. But that stickiness is there, that I know that these people have made a transition. I don't feel so bad. Like, there are, I'm sure, stories where tainted eye drops or, prescription pricing being gouging, whatever. But I'm feeling good about that. So you're generating awareness. You're putting your brand is being reshaped through your actions. So that is what I think is most important, is that you're putting out there. There is going to be return on investment, whether it be through goodwill, whether it be through, again, sometimes you can do increased sales, or you can do targeted promos or whatever. But the idea is that you just want to get involved. You want to activate the community and say, I'm here. I don't want to take over the conversation, but I want you to know that I'd love to be part of this conversation.
Yeah, and I would add it's about the employee engagement too, right? And this is why I think maybe it doesn't have to be so tied into the brand, what you normally do, what your customers are going to remember or not, right? It's, are you doing something good that makes your employees feel good, right? And then are they proud to work for your company because you're doing, good in whatever the thing is that you choose.
I'm so happy that you brought that up, because we have not even scratched that surface. We talked a little about wellness. The employee benefit is massive. So when you have a program like a wellness program, and you're like, well, you know what, you get free gym membership, right? Well, if an employee doesn't use the free gym membership, that's effectively their loss. They didn't want to do it. But the next step for human resources is to be like, is this worth it? Because I don't think you're working out. So then immediately a wellness program turns into a guilt program. It's terrible. Like, say a company like an athletic company, Under Armour, Nike, Adidas, or whatever, they challenge their employees and their employees don't go out. Well, there's that goodwill initiative of giving them a membership now becomes like an albatross, where you're like, the employees feeling guilty, the employees feel like they're not taking advantage of programs, or that program isn't for me, or I have kids. I can't go out to the gym, or I have deadlines. Like, there are things that are happening that can't make them take advantage. However, if you're showing, this has been huge in the employee market, if you're showing that, hey, we're involved, our name is attached to this program that's dealing with Fortnite, gaming, an audience that I really, like, that's my audience. That makes an audience feel 1,000 times better. Employees are like, that's my organization. I remember working at Hollywood Video corporate office, and when our stuff would show up in movies, like someone would drive by, that was like a week's worth of news inside the office. Like, did you see us? We were in a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. We're in the background. And like, that generates a lot of goodwill with your employees. And the more you continue to do that, the more they can get engaged. And I think that is what really is important for a lot of employees. Employees want to show that they're doing something, not just in the workplace. Especially, I know there's a lot of, I keep using this term, animosity towards millennials. Like, these guys don't work at all.
Right.
They're smarter. They work better, faster. They're like, they can cut through the treacle of nonsense much quicker.
Right.
So if they're like, I'm not giving back, I'm not contributing, I'm doing this 24/7, or I'm working at this place, and I don't feel like my ideas are getting valued. But if I can join this Twitch stream, or if I can provide value in this capacity, that is where you're going to start seeing them explode. And we've seen it. We've seen a ton of real, like, people are saying, thank you so much for doing this. Like, we'll be at an event. We were just at, the Game Developers Conference. Employees coming up like, thank you so much for doing this. I'm like, your company did this.
Right.
Your company made it. But they were so excited. They were there. They were active. Like, we never would have come to the show. We never would have had the opportunity to go to this thing. We never would have had the opportunity to meet or, talk to these people. And like that, your company made it happen. So there's a lot of goodwill going on. So I'm glad you brought up the employee part.
Yeah. No, I was, just making the connections, kind of, based on what you were talking about it too, and that is
You'd make a good CSR person. I think we should get you involved.
What's hilarious is that actually came up in some assessment I took. Right, it was like potential jobs that would be good for you. That's like literally one of the jobs I could be doing. Is it better to do charity drives over a few activations and have it culminate with a big event? You started talking about this a little bit, like that's how you were doing, but it sounds like there's different ways that you can go about this. Now that, maybe the big events right now are not an option. So what do you see as the future?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that there's going to be, we just talked about how there's a new normal. And we're going to eventually get back to having a show, whether it be Penny Arcade Expo or whatever. But what I'm seeing is that people are getting more and more comfortable. Heck, they have classrooms full of 20, 30 people online at the same time, passing pencils around. This is going to become more and more normal. And what's really cool is that technology has, you have parents too, you have older people in your life. Technology has always been a burden to them. That, as far as I'm aware, like there's a small subset, like there were people my age, 22, there were people my age who were like, I'm not going to learn computers because I'm not going to get involved with that stuff. And I'm like everything's going to be computers. So I think what's happening is that a lot more people became familiar with this technology, and then some, because I've been on Zoom and Cloudflare and Skype calls 6 hours a day. So people are getting more familiar with the tools. When they start doing that, they're going to start realizing like more and more people are going to start getting information this way. More people are going to be communicating this way. So I think that's been a really big plus. The question there was, how is it better to do a one-off or multiple setup? Well, again, it's all in what you're trying to achieve. I think if you're trying to make a big splash, if you're trying to do something maybe quarterly, yearly, you do a big event, do a big splash, make something that is part of your corporate culture that you can, champion on the inside, and then have that audience, have that community start getting the word out. But I think the real value is to continually get back and forth. Like we mentioned, the local organizations, you can get instantaneous feedback. Well, guess what? You can get instantaneous feedback even at a big company, as long as you're giving and receiving. You're going to give and take. So the more events that you do, the more committed you are to, like, again, if you have the opportunity to do a series of events, like you hear gaming marathons, like it's from Friday to Sunday. Nobody's sitting on a 72-hour marathon the whole time.
Right.
Well, unless that's the gist of it. But the idea is like those 3-day marathons can generate certain amounts for charity and certain amount of awareness. But, the news cycle is so quick.
Mm-hmm.
You could be gone by, heck, there have been $1 million streams over the last week.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're blips. It's crazy how quick that cycle goes through. So it's probably better to create a plan of multiple events where or multiple engagements. Like, hey, we're going to do this employee thing, and our community management team, they're going to talk about it. Gives us content. Then we're going to move into this stream that we're taking part of, that we're going to be like either partially sponsoring or whatever. Then that becomes a talking point. Then we're going to do this local thing where we're going to be doing some things locally. Like the more you do threaded around the same messaging for doing good. Mm-hmm. And as long as, you can take on multiple. You could be doing something again for dogs, or you can be doing something for kids in hospitals. They can be disparate, but they all have to kind of flow with like, this is part of who we are. We're going to do this hell or high water. Yeah. So again, multiple is probably just have a plan of continuing to do it, and don't think like, hey, I put $100,000 into an event, and I only got, I had 4 employees leave. I'm like that because that's the way you're thinking of it. It's not the way to go about these things.
Yeah, definitely. So you made me think of something when you're talking about people just getting more familiar with platforms like Zoom. So I wonder, so let's talk about a platform like Twitch, because that's something that, really, for the most part, I think really it's people in the gaming community, right? People that are gamers are familiar with that. They know how it works. And it's something that I think has started. I think I learned from you that there are people that will use Twitch to do things other than gaming, right? Like streaming. So tell people just briefly that aren't familiar, really what it does, but then also, is that also like, are more people getting on it? Are more people learning about that as well?
Yeah, so excellent question. And thank you I get so used to speaking in these terms that I expect them to be universal at this point.
Right.
So I would say a good starting point is Facebook and YouTube. Facebook is a social media channel, but they actually have a massive video image. People know you can share images, but they have video, and they have Facebook gaming, which they have been Facebook gaming. Their channel just launched today. Like they've ramped it up. They were supposed to be launching in the next month or so, but they pushed it up. So that it's just a social media channel, but it has this component built in. YouTube is essentially a content platform. They provide just video content, but they actually have a gaming side. They have content side for learning. It's a streaming channel. Twitch is very much, it started off as a gaming channel. It was called Justin TV. So it was built into games. But since then, it's the same thing as YouTube. It's essentially an aggregate channel, but it was focused on games, and it still is. But they have education on there. They have people who are teaching dance, how to knit. I've seen like people like doing so much on there. They've been doing Bob Ross reruns and Mr. Rogers marathons. So they're providing content just the same. So when I say Twitch, it's just another platform. And Microsoft wound up acquiring now it's been so long since I can't remember what Mixer was called beforehand, but they wound up purchasing their own channel. So there are so many outlets for streaming content, and they're going to be more and more. So what we're doing is, instead of having an event where only a few people can attend physically, everybody can be involved. So your audience goes from like, hey, if you were going to sponsor a booth at, an event, like your cost there is booth creation, the space, the travel, whatever the union costs are for packing all that stuff up. You're like $25,000 for what? This X amount of people to see my wares, to see my product. Or I could be in front of an audience of like, say, Ninja, who's now on Mixer. But, he does a stream for an hour and he's in front of 1.5 million people, right? Yeah, like there are so many different ways of skinning that, getting your product out there and getting awareness through those channels. So Twitch, again, was in games, but it's just a content platform like Facebook, YouTube. It's just a way to deliver content that the audience wants to see.
Mm-hmm.
There was a second part to that I completely wound up speaking around and not.
Oh, it's fine. Did you see more people like having the awareness of what it is and how these things work?
Yes. So that is exactly it. So Verizon just put out a press release about 2 weeks ago that shared some information. It's now universally available, but Twitch saw its viewership go up 700%.
Well, there you go. Well, I guess that would be an increase. I mean,
Yes.
I guessed that was happening, but yeah, that confirms it for sure.
Massive growth. So this pandemic has really kind of set the tone for like not only driving awareness to that platform, but it made a lot of streamers on there. People get money by subscriptions. People online through Patreon. They saw a lot of growth. So those influencers, they're called content creators, influencers, streamers.
Mm-hmm.
They are. What's crazy is they are, and I'm sure people here might have, like, they probably know Ninja or Markiplier or even Jacksepticeye. There are names that are becoming more and more part of the lexicon just because kids are talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Those people have millions, 25 million to 100 million followers.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get connected to them, like via whatever medium, and show like, hey, we're helping to get, it's been massive. The growth there has been exponential.
Right. That's awesome. Well, I think that's a perfect place to leave it. I think you are perfectly positioned to help companies, tap into all of these, new things, whether it's the technology and trends and a digital first mindset for now, at least, right? Until we can get back into, having those face-to-face activations as well. That's great. So anything else you want to add to what we've talked about today?
Well, yeah, first off, there's got to be the technology to clone oneself, because that's how big things are going to get. Like, I wish I could, so I could, enjoy this time off.
Right.
But no, but I was saying, if you want to learn more about corporate social responsibility, how you can get involved, how you can get engaged, my site, or our site, I'll say, our team's growing, is Double Plus, spelled like doubleplus.gg. And what Double Plus comes from is, it's funny, it was Double Plus Good was from 1984. It was this dystopian idea, but that has turned now for Double Plus being good for brands, good for charities.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very, we've turned 1984 on its ear. But we'll have information up there for events that we've put together, so to get you ideas. And if you want to reach out, feel free. We'll put I have some homework from this, because it sounded like I have to put something up close to the front page. So check us out for more info. Feel free to contact us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much, Neal. It's great chatting with you today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, everybody.